And I'm the God. I'm joined by my lovely, beautiful, talented, and very gifted co-host, River Wildfire Moon. It's Friday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we want to welcome you all to the Paranormal Lounge. This is the place where you can come in, kick back, and join some of the best power talk anywhere. I want to start by saying that the call number to the show is 818-431-8214. That's 818-431-8214. Call in if you have questions for myself, for River, for our guest co-host, Victor the Voice Fuhrman, or our guest for this evening, which is Cinnamon Moon, and we will talk about her in just a few moments. We have a great agenda for you guys this evening. We have the shot of the night, which is kind of like a rant discussion. We have the Moonshine Chaser, which is kind of like an educational segment. And then we have the last shot, which is kind of like the thought of the week. I guess since this is our first show, I should introduce myself. I'm psychic medium Chris Georeg. I'm known as the godfather of psychic mediums, and my co-host is River Wildfire Moon. And it's kind of interesting because this show came about. I wanted to do another show, and my premise for the show was that it was going to be a paranormal lounge where it's a place where we could all just calm, hang out, have a shot, drink a glass of wine, and just, talk real and be real with each other and not have to worry about being judged. I'm going to tell you this. I have a lot of opinions. River has a lot of opinions. Victor the Voice Fuhrman has a lot of opinions, and you might not agree with some of them, and that's okay because we're in the lounge and we're just chilling out, having a good time. The show was supposed to be me and 6 women, and I kind of like that idea. But as time went on, it kind of changed. It was me and then 2 women, which, the menage a trois is always great. But then it wound up being just me and River Wildfire Moon. And I'm happy to say that she is going to be a phenomenal co-host. She's a beautiful woman. She has a lot of opinions. She's very knowledgeable. She's a smart lady. She's a grounded lady. And you know what? She's going to say the way it is. And if you don't like it, you can pick that up with her because I'm not messing with the girl. River, is there something you want to say about yourself before we go on with the show?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here along with you, Chris. I'm very excited, along with Victor the Voice Fuhrman. My mother is in the house tonight. Woo! DTM Wicked Radio. Hello to everybody. I am River Wildfire Moon. I'm the daughter of a medicine woman. Not only is my essence elemental, it's also fundamental, irrevocable, and wild. To never reach beyond the surface is to be but an amateur seeker, okay? I co-founded Spirit Lodge Resource and Study Center in January of 2000. I'm the CEO of Wildfire Network. Divination is my passion, and deciphering the language of souls is my life's work. I am also a medium and a paranormal archaeologist, and we'll get into that as the show goes on. I decipher, research, catalog. That is my life. I've taken my work very seriously. I've taken my work to the public and also my philosophies for a number of years now, via soul mediation sessions and as a recurring radio host on multiple networks. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys in the lounge, and I can't wait. I'm just so excited that the night is here. So, let's do this. Party.
All right, and I think it's very important that we introduce our guest co-host tonight. And I'd like to say a little something about Victor the Voice Fuhrman. Victor is a very personal friend of mine. We became friends, I guess, about 3 years ago. And from the day we met, I think that there was a bond that was created between the two of us that has not been able to be broken. He's been my co-host on my show, Second Sight, for 2 years now. He is an amazing man. He is the voice of reason. I look up to him as a mentor, and I don't look up to too many people. I'm going to tell you the truth about that, people. But I do look up to Victor. He's kind of helped me bring myself to the next level. I'm not talking about as a psychic. I'm talking about as a radio host. As a psychic, he's helped guide me through certain things, and he's taught me things and how to, treat certain situations. And I feel that in the 3 years that I've known him, I've grown, in leaps and bounds. So without further ado, I would love to introduce my friend, my mentor, my co-host on Second Sight, and our guest co-host tonight, Victor the Voice Fuhrman.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, River. It's a pleasure being with you guys tonight. You know, I just want to say that I was the gentleman who dubbed Chris the godfather of psychic mediums.
Yes, you did.
And I consider myself, he's the godfather, I'm the consigliere. And together we are the team. So
that's a fact.
It's nice to be with you guys tonight. And, you know, Chris and I have done some amazing things together, and I'm sure that'll be a topic of conversation somewhere along the line, including the exorcism work that Chris is famous for doing, and some of the spiritual attachment removal that Chris is famous for doing. My forte is working with spirit. I consider myself to be a spiritual counselor. I counsel the living and I counsel the disincarnate, and work with both of them, and that's what my calling has been. So great to be with you guys tonight.
And it's great to have you here, Victor. You know, for the first segment, you know, the show is going to have segments. Like I said earlier, we're going to have the shot of the night, we're going to have the moonshine chaser, and then we're going to have the last shot. So for the first shot tonight, I want to talk a little bit about nasty people. For those of you who don't know me, I mean, a lot of you that are from DTM Wicked know me. From, you know, are you there? Did I just lose you?
No, you're good.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, a lot of the people from DTM Wicked Radio know me, obviously, because they've been around for quite some time. But for the people from Tesla who are just meeting me for the first time, I used to be 319 pounds. And since February, I've gone down to 260 pounds. So, and it's a process, and then I'm trying to get down to 220, you know, which is almost like my fighting weight from back in the day. And so I've been working very hard at it, and I'm proud of myself. Okay. I go to work today, and there's these three, I mean, how can I explain them? They're kind of like ghetto girls. They really don't have a brain between the three of them. I mean, if you put two of their heads together, they make almost a perfect hair for themselves. And not a very nice hair. Anyway, so I go into work, and one of them says to me, "Hey, Chris, you know, you look like you lost a lot of weight, but you're still fat." And I was like, I mean, really? I mean, why would somebody say something like that? So me being who I am, of course I had to say something back. And I told her, I said, you know what? You're really not ugly. Just think of yourself as a beautiful monkey. And she didn't like that too much, okay? I probably shouldn't have said that, but I did. And she, you know, she got pretty pissed off. She tried to do some kind of ninja thing with me. She did like a spinning kick thing. She kind of looked like I would say a cross between somebody who was twitching and having aphasia. So I kind of laughed at her. But my point is, why did she have to say something like that? What's the point in saying something so nasty to somebody for no reason? Something so nasty without being provoked, okay? Now, if somebody provokes you and you want to say something back to them, okay, I understand that. But to just come out and be outright rude and nasty to somebody for no reason, you know, it makes no sense to me. So that's what I just want to talk about before we start the show. You know, why do people feel that it's okay to just be nasty for no reason? And Liv, I'd like to go to you first. What do you want to say to that?
You know, you're going to get this everywhere you go. We all do all the time. Sometimes it's repeat people we know really well in our lives. They carry and they feed within them negativity and pain. And she was obviously a wounded woman and has been wounded by someone or something along the way. And the only thing I try to do when this happens is immediately regenerate it, you know, and remind people that it doesn't have to be one event, not one thing that defines us. And we can come back from anything. And it's sad. It's sad that some people direct their anger or their pains on other people, and, you know, they're removed from spirit, really. I'm sorry you went through it. I'm not the kind of person that fights with fire unless I'm called to do so, and that's on a rare occasion. And when I do have to wield my sword, it's difficult to do, and there's also only one way to set it down. So you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful. But, you know, it's a rant, so I understand. It's frustrating. These kind of things frustrate us, you know?
It's amazing. And Vic, what would you have to say to that?
I agree with Reverend. I'll take it to one other statement, which is a teaching that I learned a long time ago from a wonderful mentor who said when someone says something to you that's upsetting or personally not pleasant, you say to yourself, what you think of me is none of my business. What you think of me is none of my business.
So what you're saying is I should have just kind of smiled at her and kept walking?
Exactly.
Yeah, but then I would have missed that whole crazy little spinning back kick thing she did, and I mean that kind of made my day. I got to tell you. I mean,
you know something that when we acknowledge someone else who's being less than positive to us, who's being negative toward us, we're actually enhancing their energy and encouraging them to continue with that type of activity. But if you just let it go and don't pay attention and take that stance, what you think of me is none of my business, then you've completely cut off their energy and you've stopped the activity. And maybe, just maybe, they'll grow from that experience.
All right, well said. So anyway, go ahead, River, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you may be doing yourself a favor at the same time because you're not reducing your energy level. You're not letting someone bleed you out for no reason, you know. Fight the right battles. Fight hard and win when the time is right, you know.
And Ripper, I just want to say that Chris has had a significant weight loss, and I've lost in the last 2 years 180 pounds. So between Chris and I, we've lost 3 people. Right, Chris?
At least 3, Jesus.
Congratulations. You can add my loss to that list, too. I started, too, about 2 years back. I had to. I did this thing. I called it the living sculpture. In my mind, I had an image, a stone image of what I thought I should be. And I worked on it in many areas of my life. Yeah, I'm pretty close to.
Well, you know, for those of you who are watching on Tesla, take a good look at this lady. She's a looker, don't you think? I mean, she's a beautiful woman, and you know, I'm proud to have her as my co-host, and I know that this is the start of big things. And again, I just want to say thank you, River, for accepting, you know, my asking you to be my co-host. I appreciate that. Anyway, River, why don't you introduce our guest this week and give a little bio on them?
I would love to. This week is going to be near and dear to my heart. Chris, this week we have Cinnamon Moon. Okay, Cinnamon Moon was called to a path of service as a medicine woman and non-denominational minister. Her work as a spiritual life coach, teacher, and clairsentient reader has spanned over 40 years of public service. It was her love of sharing her work and the spiritual knowledge that she's gained that led her to publish her book, A Medicine Woman Speaks. And without further ado, my mother, Medicine Woman, Cinnamon Moon.
Cinnamon, welcome. Thank you for being our first guest on the Paranormal Lounge. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you know, River has told me a lot about you, and I've been looking forward to this interview ever since we decided to bring you on our first show. So this should be a lot of fun, and I want to introduce you to Victor Fuhrman. Vic, say hello to our guest.
Good evening, Cinnamon.
Good evening, Victor. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. When I hear your name, I think of that old Neil Young song, I want to live with a cinnamon girl. I could be happy the rest of my life with a cinnamon girl.
There is a reason why we call him the voice.
I love it.
So, Cinnamon, let me ask you, is there anything that you want to let us know about you that River didn't say in your bio?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, hey, Vic, why don't you start out this interview?
Well, Cinnamon, tell us, what inspired you to write the book, A Medicine Woman Speaks?
Okay, well, guidance started to nudge me to write about spiritual matters, and that was out of my comfort zone. There were only a small handful of women writing on the subject. This was back in the 80s and 90s. And it was mainly a male-dominated genre, so I resisted and kind of pushed the idea aside. I'd written since I was 11 years old, but I like to write fantasy. So I just, okay, they were telling me, and I didn't want to do it. And then around that same time, River was always sneaking into my office when I was working, and she'd be going through my books on magic and spirituality, and I had to keep eyes in the back of my head because she was always grabbing at something that she wasn't ready for. and I'd suggest something that was better suited to her level of understanding at the time, and she was always reaching, always. We recognized her guidance at an early age and fostered that, and I remember her sitting in her room around, when she was maybe 8 or 10, and trying to make herself levitate. She wanted to do that so bad. Anyway, she'd take the books I gave her and run off and practice those teachings and then come back to discuss her experiences, and she wanted me to write about what I know along spiritual lines. And her spirit was pushing for me to do that. And she just got so insistent. And I resisted guidance, and I resisted her. I thought this is just too risky to address, and I kept pulling back, but she wouldn't give up, so I finally gave it a go, and A Medicine Woman Speaks was born. That came out in 2000.
Cinnamon, you said that it was a male-dominated field. Genre, field, however you want to say it. What was it like for you being a woman in that field? Were you taken seriously at first, and how long was it before people started looking at you as a medicine woman?
Well, they already were at that time, but I wasn't. I was just going public. I had been practicing privately. The male dominance was coming from the medicine men. They were the ones that were speaking out. The women kept silent. And at that point in time, it was just, and when I'm saying a handful, I mean 5 or 6 at the most, women that were writing on that topic. It was very limited back then.
Well, would we know any of the names of these women? Or is there even anybody worth mentioning?
They were. I think Lynn Andrews was one. Margot Adler was one. I can't think right now off the top of my head. It's been a long time since I've been reading books. So.
Okay.
Mom, why don't you explain how it is that you became known as Cinnamon Moon? Let's go back to that era of your life. How did that come about?
Back in the 70s, my guides told me to choose a medicine name that represented the body of work that I was doing. And the spiritual and physical attributes of cinnamon fit it very nicely. It's been used for centuries as an incense to purify temples. So it has wonderful cleansing properties. It's healing to the body. It alleviates symptoms to many different ailments that people commonly experience. It enhances sensory abilities and dream work and has attracting properties, as well as several other beneficial attributes. And much of that was relative to the work I did.
Okay.
And then the moon represents my being a child of the night. I always have been. The reflective aspects of my abilities as a seer and my clairsentience, it's very much the essence of the feminine side of my nature. And I like the image it forms in my mind. I love it. The harvest moon, the season when cornucopias spill those blessings and bounty to share. And sharing the sacred mysteries is very much a cornucopia of knowledge that can be harvested. So I chose that name, and I took it back to guidance, and they said, okay, that'll work. And then when they told me to write my book, and I began in earnest, they were there to inspire me, and they also told me to use it as a pen name, and from then to use it professionally because my path was going to be evolving. And I didn't know how it was going to evolve, but you're going to need this. So I did, and I took it legally through the courts. It's one of 4 spirit names given to me over the years, and it's the only one I share publicly, but it is a spirit name.
Well, you know, the whole moon name that you and your daughter have, I think that's what attracted me to your daughter first. And I don't mean in a physical way. I mean just the name, you know, kind of popped out at me, River Wildfire Moon. And, you know, the moon is very significant to myself and to Victor for that matter because, you know, every year I have a big New Year's Eve party. And last year, Victor actually came to my New Year's Eve party. And, you know, after having pretty much a wild night with some great friends, Victor had a thimble full of moonshine. I had a couple shots of moonshine. And before you know it, we had a bonfire going out in the backyard, and we were dancing naked around that bonfire, howling at the moon. So, see, we actually have something in common, Cinnamon.
I was going to ask if you started the bonfire with the moonshine.
But, you know, he didn't start the fire with the moonshine, but what he did was he got down on all fours, bayed at the moon and howled at the moon, and then lifted his hind leg, and he put out the bonfire. So.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, God.
Oh, well, that's a wild night.
Absolutely. So, Cinnamon, tell us. You sort of explained your name, Cinnamon Moon, but what is the essence of the spirit name?
Well, that's not a real short answer. A spirit name is a name of power, and it's on very personal levels. We become them, they become us, we grow together as one, okay? It can be bestowed on us through guidance, and as this one was in my case, or through a spiritual leader who has done ceremony and received the name in a sacred manner. It might mark a spiritual rite of passage, the capacity of our respective spiritual attributes, or acknowledge the permission to work with new spiritual powers, or what I would call gifts of spirit. And sometimes they reflect a power animal or main totem spirit. Some people have one spirit name, while others, usually those who walk a path of spiritual service in some capacity, are going to have more. And of those that have just one name, it might be the holding of their true name, the name of their inner spirit. And in that case, the name is not easily shared, if ever. It's guarded very, very well. To know the true name of someone's spirit can be used to summon that spirit. And if you think of how you react when your name's called formally, how your persona shifts or your focus changes, it commands your respect and that of others. And that's just when your name's called. It symbolizes your reputation, and we use our formal names in all official capacities. Spirit names are more powerful than that. They're used formally in spiritual workings. And when we reach out to our helpers, we identify ourselves with these names. If one is about to call on their helpers or the assistance of relative energy forces, then these names indicate permission has been received to do so. And that was granted with the receiving of the name itself, and it had been well earned. So they're very sacred.
You know, I just want to take a step back for a second, Cinnamon. You know, when you first started talking, you mentioned totem animals. And, you know, a lot of times people ask me, you know, how do I find out what a totem, animal is? And that's a very hard question for me to ask because the truth is, I don't know. I'm not ashamed to say that I don't know something. I consider myself an outstanding psychic medium, but I don't know so much about the totem animals to really talk like an expert on it. I can talk on it, but not like an expert. So in your opinion or in your knowledge, how do you go about figuring out what your totem animals are?
How do you figure them out? Is that what
yes,
you're
asking?
Ma'am.
Yes.
There are 9 totem animals that we all walk with. Whether we're aware of it or not is another story, but there are 9 of them. There's one for each of the 7 sacred directions, one for our feminine nature, and one for our masculine nature. Usually, if you're meditating and you're going through spiritual training, you will be introduced to them in a spiritual way. If you're someone that is taking up an interest in specifically looking for your totem animals, kind of coming new to the subject, you might find them coming forward in a meditation. It might be something where you have a fascination or even a fear of them, like someone that maybe had snake medicine in them might be afraid of snakes. And at first, anyway, until you get to working with them. But they will sometimes come to us in spirit form. We might attract that creature in the physical sense. They just seem to be attracted to us throughout life, or we're fascinated with them.
When I meditate on it, there are 3 that come to me very, very, very strongly. The first one is a wolf, and I think it has to do with me being loyal. The second one is an eagle, a wolf. Okay. Now, in my mind, it's because I'm a loyal person. I feel that wolves are very loyal. The second one is an eagle, and I guess that's my vision. And the third one, isn't considered an animal, but every time I meditate on it, I always see a dragon, and it comes through so strong, even more strong than the wolf and the eagle. Now, I don't know why that is, because I wouldn't consider a dragon an animal, but when I meditate on it, that's the vision I get every single time. Would you have any idea why that would be?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me address them in the order you presented them. A wolf definitely deals with loyalty. It also deals with the pack, and social behavior within that pack is very, very structured. But wolf is the great teacher. And so I would imagine that you must be doing some teaching in your life too.
I actually do a lot of it. I actually do psychic development.
Mm-hmm. Now, Eagle carries our prayers to the Creator and comes back with the answers. Eagle is a predatory bird, and all predator birds have telescopic vision, so that's telling me that you have the capacity to see the big picture and narrow things down, the macro and the macro.
Okay.
All right. And with dragons, I love the dragons. They can be associated with lizard medicine, which is they're the gatekeeper to the dream world, and they enhance our dreams. They work with us in dreams. So dragon is definitely a power source as well. I mean, they're a large creature, and they can be predatory. But in the spiritual sense, if you have a predator for a totem animal, you're preying on knowledge. You're gathering knowledge. You're gathering insight. You're gathering enlightenment. You're not preying on other people.
I like that.
Okay. So you don't have to be afraid of a predatory animal. Just learn how it hunts so that you can hunt in that same manner. Eagle's going to grab with its talons, so it's quick grab. When you see something, you grab it and you hold on to it, and it nourishes you. What they hunt nourishes.
I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Hi. All right. Mom, will you kind of go back one more time again for us and kind of tell our listening audience how it is that we kind of become known as this moon family that we are?
Well, you girls were raised in a spiritual awareness and taught to respect as well as walk in your own paths authentically. And since you understood the meaning behind my name, and both of you are seers in your own right, Moon fit you. You both earned it, and I'm extremely pleased to have passed it on to you. River's name, River Wildfire Moon, represents her empathic nature, her deep sense of emotion, her primal spirit, her working mediumship, her passion to share her gifts with the world and more. She wanders where she will and carves her own path just like a river would. Gypsy Moon's name represents her free-spirited nature, her own way of expressing herself as a seer and paranormal investigator. So to be more specific, I mean, you girls would have to define for yourselves. That's your prerogative, but I think the listening audience can see where it ties in.
You know, you said that they earned the name Moon. How did they do that? What was so special about what they were doing that you said, you know what, they've actually earned the name Moon?
Well, the moon represents our intuitive abilities. It represents our visionary abilities, and both of them are very intuitive. Both of them are able to capture a vision. They can see the spirits. They can scry. They can see into the other dimensions. So, in my mind, that's earning the right to walk with the moon name.
Thanks, Mom.
Okay. Vic, you want to take the next one?
Cinnamon, tell us, what were the spiritual communities like when you were growing up?
They were very closed. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, so they were kind of hidden behind closed doors. We were in what I call the lingering shadow times, if you will. Back then, all spiritual and nature-based or pagan practices were forbidden by law, and people were not open to sharing their beliefs. Persecution and social ostracization, they resulted when you did expose yourself. Spirituality was generally seen as wicked and evil, definitely a taboo. And for most people, it meant you were going to go burn in hell. Those communities met in secret. And I'd say it was mid-'60s when transcendental meditation became really big, and the Eastern philosophies in general. People did talk about that and get involved in those practices, but they were acceptable beliefs. And Carlos Castaneda's books, those were all the buzz during the hippie days. But books on spirituality and metaphysics had to be special ordered from rare booksellers, and they came in the mail wrapped in plain brown paper packages. There were no spirituality sections at the major bookstores back then. I've been walking this earth for 67 years. I've seen some changes. And it wasn't until 1978 that the laws on nature-based religion were finally repealed. And even then it took another decade or so before society began to stop seeing it as a taboo. And about that point, people began to share, but it was still in whispers and closed, like-minded groups. I think that the flower power generation helped open those doors up, but for most of society, it was still pretty cautionary. And there were movements like the Gardnerian Covens and the Golden Dawn that brought a resurgence of witchcraft forward, and then evolving from that came the Wicca, and that became vogue. But it was a transition period back then.
Cinnamon, I think you and I are peers or close in age, and I remember in my early teens going to Samuel Weiser's bookstore in Greenwich Village here in New York, and that was the only place that I could find books on magic and metaphysics and mysticism. And you're right, we had to take them home in plain brown wrappers. I remember that well.
Well, you didn't want anybody seeing what you were buying either.
That's it.
Yeah, it was very different back then.
I'd like to take a step back for a moment, if you don't mind, Fuhrman. And I want to know a little bit, about your family. What was it like, your ancestors? Because I from what I know about being psychic is, that psychic blood runs usually on one side of the family. And I'm guessing the same stands true for yourself. Could you tell us a little bit about your ancestors?
Yeah, my father was a beautiful soul. He was an elder in the Lutheran Church. His mother was raised in a rural lifestyle. They were farmers and artisans, and her ways were the ways of the land. They planted their crops by the phase of the moon, depending on whether it was a below ground or above ground crop. Judged the turning of the year by the song of the crickets and the fuzz on the caterpillars, animal migrations. She would tell the weather by the cup of the moon and its halo, or the clouds and the wind. And she was pretty nature-based in many ways, but they were more folk ways. My parents divorced when I was 9. My mother met and remarried a Roman Catholic Bohemian gypsy. Oh, that one. He'd been raised in the gypsy family tradition as well as the church. And while he was a loving father and a great grandpa, we were really blessed. But his abilities fascinated us growing up. He was a gifted telepath and fire starter. And his gift of being a fire starter was something that I begged him to teach me, but he wouldn't do it. And he said it could too easily go amiss, that it was too dangerous, and he would never, ever, ever pass it on to anyone. And oddly enough, he was captain on the fire department. But I can remember being young and watching him start a fire in the fireplace or a bonfire up at our lake cabin from 20 to 30 feet away.
Wow.
I mean, it was just fascinating, and I still want to learn how to do it. Excuse me. Yeah, and my mom, she was fascinated by the metaphysical side of life. But she didn't develop. She lived vicariously through his abilities, and she loved the Ouija board. She and my grandmother liked parlor games and attended tarot and tea leaf sessions. Grandma went to seances. Both of them held an interest, but neither one of them ever developed their abilities, or if they did, they never talked about it. On my grandfather's side, there were rumors of Blackfoot blood in the family. Those secrets were mostly coming from his sister. We lived in an extended household, so my great aunt and my grandparents and my parents and my brothers and sisters and I all lived together. But back then, that was a skeleton in the closet. You didn't talk about it with anyone outside the family, and inside the family, it only got rattled about here and there. I've got one picture of my great-grandparents and their 9 children they had, and a native woman. And I know they were quite wealthy, but servants didn't pose in family pictures. And I know that's not enough proof to claim it as a blood tie, but my aunt insisted that it was true. And I know that my grandfather was deeply loving the indigenous ways. So I spent about 15 years, I'd say, combing the family tree and then trying to find proof, but I came up empty. So the photo's enough for me. I don't need to claim a blood tie, but that's kind of what it was like growing up. There wasn't a family gift or ability that was passed down that I could say was passed on.
Okay, Liz, did you have a follow-up question?
I did. It's not really a question, it's just a statement. I think it was the era of the family itself that that carries forward the same way we should do for our families now. And my mother mentioned this photo, and it didn't actually hit me until very recently, the extent that that photo may actually have an impact on myself. My guide, when she steps forward, her name is Elle. It's the first letter of her name. I never give her full name away to anyone. But there have now been sessions that she has given that came as an adult that I have recently had transcribed, and I believe them to be Lakota. We do not speak Lakota language. I had never heard it before. But a very good friend of mine was able to translate some of that spirit speak for me, and it came out to be Lakota. And so now in the back of my mind, it lingers there, and I wonder, could it have been the woman in the photo? So just kind of interesting, and Mom and I were just talking about that the other day.
She would not have been Lakota. She would have been Blackfoot.
Right.
That's what Nanny said. She was Blackfoot. But my girlfriend was Lakota, and I know a lot of Lakota people I have a lot of Lakota friends, and so it's possible that that's why the language is coming through for you.
Yeah, it's only a few words. It's only ever been a few words, and a couple of them were translatable at that, and the others weren't, so I really don't know, but it was interesting anyway, so we had it. Let me ask you, when around Mom did you become aware of your spiritual nature or your spiritual abilities, that kind of thing?
A long time ago. I was 5 years old, and one day I was playing, and I told the wind what to do, and it listened to me. So I did it again, and I did it again, and each time the same thing happened. The wind responded. And that's all it took to recognize that it understood me and we could interact. And I learned to call it to me. I could ask it to send messages to others and a few other things. And the validations were there every time. And it was kind of simply a part of my personal reality growing up. And then I started to see faces in the clouds, and they responded to me. They showed me pictures and helped me understand their element of air. I was fascinated with them and the wind, and we played together. I mean, I played as a child with them. They were my friends. So the elemental forces just kind of followed over time in their own ways after that, and I recognized that they were aware just like the wind had done, and they taught me things about myself, at least on a level that a 5-year-old child could comprehend, you know. So I was very young.
Yeah, this is a question I ask pretty much all the psychics that come on our show. Okay, you say you started seeing things or feeling things when you were 5. For me, I guess I was about, I want to say 9 years old when it started for me. First of all, how did you deal with it as a 5-year-old? And then how did you deal with it when you were like 13, 14 years old? Because for me, you know, by the time I was 13, I was begging it to stop. And quite frankly, it did. And I had very little spirit communication until I went into the military when I was about 18. So I turned it off because it scared the hell out of me. In the beginning.
It never frightened me. I'll take that back. It did at one point when the totems started coming through, but I'll get to that in a minute here. But we were friends, you know. They were my playmates. Call them invisible friends if you want. And I loved it. I was intrigued by them. Let's do this again. Let's have some more fun. I mean, imagine being a 5-year-old child and telling the wind to go over there and watching it do it. And then it comes back and it starts throwing your hair in your face. And you tell it to go over there and point in a different direction, and it goes over there. Or you call out and you say, wind, come to me, and it does. You know, it was fun.
You know,
just plain fun.
I understand that, and what you're saying really resonates with me. You know, when I said it scared the hell out of me, I need to clarify that. It didn't scare me because it was spirit. What scared me, and I said this on Victor and my show last night, Second Sight, I was scared of people finding out about me. You know,
I kept it to myself. Yeah.
You know, psychics run in my family. Okay, well, there's one psychic in my family that's very famous. Okay, so on my father's side of the family, there was always psychic ability. Nobody ever really saw spirit the way I did, but there was that very strong psychic connection on my father's side of the family. Now, that being said, when I would see the spirits, it didn't scare me when I was a kid. Like I said, just the fact that I had friends who I just felt wouldn't understand, or my family, by the time I was 13, my father and mother wanted to take me to a psychiatrist because I'm talking to things that aren't there and having full conversations with them, and they were like, what, are you crazy? I'm like, no, I'm not crazy. I'm talking to heaven. What do you mean am I crazy? And it was at that point when I was 13 that they would have sent me to a psychiatrist. I said, and I begged the spirit, I said, please, you need to leave me alone. And they did.
I can relate to that. I can relate to that. When I was in my early teens, some of my abilities started kicking in, and I told my mom I thought I was losing my mind. You know, and she said, you know, well, just go with it. I can take you to a doctor, but they're not going to believe you. You know, so.
Right.
But I kept an awful lot of it to myself until I was in my late teens. Yeah. Society wasn't open to it back then either. So, you know, I mean, what we experienced within the family and what we experienced on our own, you know, as a child, my brother was astral projecting and doing things, and there were all kinds of stuff going on. So you just kept it within the family.
Yeah, you know, you're right about that. You did keep it in the family, but what happened to me was, you ready for this? My father, who later became my biggest supporter when I became psychic medium Chris Georeg, by far my biggest supporter, he called Monsignor Andrew from St. Rita's church here in Staten Island to come and bless me. And I'm like, you have a priest coming to the house to bless me? I'm not crazy, you know? And that's when I said, you know what, enough. And you know, and I begged spirits to leave me alone, and they did. But you know, I need to ask you this: when you really came out, and I guess in your teens, how did your friends react to you? Because I know that that's something that Vic and I have spoken about before, and River, I would love to hear your answer to that as well after your mom. How did your friends react to you when they figured out what you were doing and what you were capable of?
They were fascinated.
Right.
They supported me. They wanted readings. They were bringing their friends to me. They wanted to study with me. I was received very well, very well. Who didn't receive me well were strangers. Mm-hmm. But my friends shared a similar interest, so it was pretty good for me in that regard.
And Vic, what about you? How did your friends react? Because I think people will be interested to know how it was for all of us.
I have to keep it completely secret. I grew up in the 50s and the early 60s, and my challenge was initially my parents, my mother and father, would say that I had an overactive imagination. And my connection was with my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, who was a mystic, and I believe he was a closeted magician, and that's a story for another time. But he and I had a very, very powerful relationship, and he looked at me not as a child, but as a peer. and would share spiritual information with me that you would share with someone who was older. And he was very old when I was very young. He was in his 80s when I was born 5 years old. And when I was 7 years old, I was in my parents' apartment, and I was in my room, and all of a sudden my grandfather appeared before me, and he smiled, and he lingered for a few seconds, and he disappeared. And I went and told my parents Grandpa was just here, and they said, "Oh, it's your overactive imagination again." And a couple of minutes later, my grandmother called saying that my grandfather had transitioned. And that was my first conscious experience of that. But again, this is something I kept secret. Other kids thought I was weird to begin with, so why encourage them to make them think I was weirder?
Yeah. I think we all had that. And what about you, Liv? How did your friends react?
Well, I had it different. You know, I grew up under that cinnamon moon, and she kept me close. She told me how to protect myself, and she didn't want me to go through what she had seen others go through or herself. And that was a big difference even between my sister and myself. I mean, Mom could probably tell you, but Gypsy was the one telling everybody. I was quiet. It would come out accidentally in casual conversation. You know, I would say something I shouldn't have said or know something I shouldn't know, and people, you know, would look at me. And I was okay with it. I was really quiet about it. I like to do it at home. You know, I like to shock my mother only. I didn't do it to shock anybody else. I did it because I was genuinely excited. You know, when the energy would change and something would happen, I would run to tell Mom. A lot of times it wasn't for someone else to react to when I was little. You know, and by the time I was old enough, I had already been raised. You don't have to worry about what someone thinks of you. You're fine the way you are. Be you. And so I embraced myself. Thank goodness I had a cinnamon moon, you know. So very different upbringing, I think, than a lot of people. So, yeah.
Well, I think it's important that I let everyone know, you know, this is our debut show. This is our first show. This is our first Paranormal Lounge, and I just got a message from DTM Wicked owner Denny that we have over 70,000 listeners for our debut show, which is phenomenal. And I just want to thank our listeners. Now, I don't know how many viewers we have on Tesla yet. I don't know when we get those numbers, but I'm just really proud to say that this is a fantastic debut show. And River, Victor, Cinnamon, thank you all for being part of such a great first show. And I'm proud of all of you, proud of myself, and thank you to Tesla and to DTM for giving us this opportunity, because this is a big opportunity for us. You know, River and myself coming out and doing the show and being on video, the first time we're doing this, and to have Victor, you know, with me as well is phenomenal. So I just want to give a big thank you, and that's it. Vic, you want to take the next question? We only have about 7 minutes in the first hour left.
Certainly, we're going to go into the next hour shortly. Cinnamon, tell us, when did you begin connecting with guidance?
That was back when I was 5. I had come down with whooping cough and gone into a coma. And back then, you were treated at home. You know, the doctors made house calls and stuff, and we were all pretty concerned because I'd been in the coma for about 3 days. And a guardian spirit came to me and brought me out of it. He told me I wasn't supposed to be there, wherever there was, and took me to the surface. Now, I met him on, if I can draw the picture for you, it was a black background, and there was a red and white spinning pinwheel. And I was on the white path, and I met him there, and he was dressed like a Native American man. And he reminded me of my maternal grandfather, who had just passed from cancer. liked him right away, and he, when he told me I wasn't supposed to be there, he tapped me on the shoulder and he goes, "Tag, you're it." And he started running up the red ribbon of the pinwheel and brought me back to the surface. And I woke up. I came out of the coma. And by then he was gone, and I was looking all over for him. And I said, "Where's the little man that brought me back?" And they said, "Oh, you're hallucinating." And I thought he was gone for good. And I missed him. I wanted to talk to him more. I wanted to know how he knew how to find me and all these things. And I didn't get those answers. But he did return as a guardian spirit, and he has remained with me my entire life. He's very special to me. It took me many, many years to find out who he really was. He likes disguises. I was, I think, maybe 30, 35 when I finally started, maybe even a little older, before I realized who he actually was, and I got that through doing a soul regression. And it was interesting. And he was the first kind of like human spirit that I encountered as a guide. At the same time, or right around that time, Wolf and her pack came to me, and I was really, that's where my fear came in. I was afraid of the wolf. And they just stayed present and quiet for a year or so, letting me get used to them. When I was sure they weren't going to eat me, because I wouldn't remember, I'm only 5 years old, and all I knew about the wolf was Little Red Riding Hood, you know. So they appeared to me as shadow figures, like the shadow people everybody talks about, only they were simply shadow wolves. Well, the shadow part told me that they weren't physically solid, though it felt like they were. I didn't call them spirits back then, only the wolves. And the pack would stay in one place, they'd curl up, and they went to sleep every time. But the female, the mature female, she followed me around the house, and she would go from room to room. And I saw her everywhere. But they only appeared when I was alone, and no one else ever mentioned seeing them, so I kept that to myself. I didn't know what a totem animal was at the time. They were just my wolves. And I also had Bear come to me back then. I called him the professor. He just listened to my thoughts and my feelings in a very nurturing way. He came in when I was feeling bad about something, or when I just needed to talk to someone and there was no one around. And later, when I got older and became involved in shamanic studies, he taught me ways of healing through prayer and weaving energy. So I can still remember the very first thing they told me that I was supposed to do. They said that I would let people know about the spirit inside them and how it's really who they truly are. And I remember them telling me to be a good little witch. That was the phrase they used. And they said that a lot, over and over and over. You have to be a good little witch. I know now it was because it was the closest thing that I could relate to. Guidance often picks symbols out of our minds to communicate the essence of the things they want to convey, and that's how they related my past work, my future past work, to me as one so young. And from that point on, anytime the word witch came up, I was all ears. I mean, who wouldn't be? I got to know what this is about, and how am I going to do this? And I didn't know how I'd do those things, but I knew that at some point in my life I'd be doing them. And I knew that people didn't like witches. Now this is back in the 50s, so people didn't like earth-based teachings, and they didn't like pagan teachings, so witches weren't good. And it's funny, in my mid-20s, let me switch ears, my hearing aid is going out. It's funny, in my mid-20s, it was children that started calling me out. little kids. I mean, they'd be, maybe 7, 8 years old, sometimes a little bit older, and they'd look at me and they'd go, "You're a witch, aren't you?" And that surprised me that they saw it. And I'd always tell them the truth. I'd go, "Shh, shh, shh. Yes, I am, but I'm a good one." And then they'd give me a smile back and relax because it scared some of them. But, children are so aware. They're so aware. So they knew that I had some kind of gift, some kind of ability. Mm-hmm.
And Cinnamon, you're such a wonderfully special and good witch because of the beautiful daughters that you brought into this world, and raised and nurtured to understand and appreciate the gifts. And if we all had moms like you, this would be a totally different world right now. Totally different world.
That's the stuff. Well, listen, guys, we've come to the end of our first hour. It was an amazing first hour, and thank you so much for that, Cinnamon. You were phenomenal this first hour. I can't wait for the second hour. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will be back.
Rolling Hills Asylum. Located in East Bethany, New York, just minutes between two major airports, Rolling Hills Asylum is a hotbed of paranormal activity. They have been featured on Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures, Paranormal Challenge, as well as Sci-Fi Channel's Ghost Hunters. Rolling Hills Asylum has been named the #2 most haunted location in the United States by HauntedNorthAmerica.com. The property was established on January 1st, 1827 as the county poor farm. Throughout the years, it has operated as a poor farm, infirmary, orphanage, tuberculosis hospital, nursing home, and more. Past residents and inmates consist of widows, orphans, physically disabled, mentally unstable, murderers, and more. Over 1,700 bodies are buried in unmarked graves, and hundreds more deaths went undocumented. Rolling Hills Asylum is known for a plethora of phenomena, including disembodied voices, doors slamming, footsteps, sounds of furniture moving, full-body apparitions, shadow people, ghostly touches, and numerous Class A EVP. Rolling Hills Asylum proudly offers historical and flashlight tours, 4- and 8-hour public ghost hunts, 8- and 9-hour private ghost hunts, and more, by appointment or pre-booking only. For more information, please visit www.rollinghillsasylum.com. That's www.rollinghillsasylum.com. Or give them a call, 585-502-4066. That's 585-502-4066. Rolling Hills Asylum. What are you doing this weekend?
Hello? Hello? Who's that? Whoa! Water! There's a ghost on the stairs.
I do believe in spooks.
The historical Fort William Henry Conference Center and Resort is a proud sponsor of DTM Wicked Radio. If you're looking for a relaxing getaway, the historical Fort William Henry Resort and Conference Center is your destination. Come enjoy the beautiful mountains, the gorgeous lake, and everything Lake George has to offer in upstate New York, right off the Adirondack Mountains. For reservations, you can go to www.fortwilliamhenry.com or call 1-800-234-0267. The Fort William Henry Resort and Conference Center.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Psychic Medium Chris Georeg, and I'm joined by my co-host, Quiver Wildfire Moon, and our guest co-host, Victor the Voice Fuhrman. The first hour we were interviewing Cinnamon Moon, and I got to tell you, the first hour really just flew by, and it was fantastic. And, again, just really proud to be on the air for you guys. All right, in the beginning of the show, I said we're going to do 3 shots a night, although I've been doing quite a few. And, guys, this is the Paranormal Lounge. You're allowed to have a shot with us, drink a glass of wine, throw down a beer, whatever you want to do. I'm a shot guy. I like scotch. I know Victor the Voice is a coffee man, and River Wildfire Moon, she likes her wine. So, listen, you could join us in partaking in a bit, It is a Friday night. It is the Paranormal Lounge. Kick back, have a good time, people. Anyway, our second shot of the night is the Moonshine Chaser, and that is River Wildfire Moon's. Give us a chaser.
Well, let's see. Let's shine a little light, right? A little moonshine, a little bit of light. Let's shine a light on oracles. Oracles, like psychics, such as the ruins, often described as healing, merciful runes. They will do you no harm. Dr. Martin Rayner, professor of physiology, University of Hawaii School of Medicine, was once quoted as saying that an oracle does not give you instruction as to what to do next, nor does it predict future events. An oracle points your attention towards those hidden fears and motivations that will shape your future. So go ahead, try out the runes, and see if this oracle will mirror your subconscious. And that is our Moonshine Chaser.
Cheers.
Cheers. I just drank to that. Cheers. So, Victor, why don't you take us into the second hour with the questions?
Cinnamon, please tell us, what areas of interest did you first explore?
Oh, my goodness. In my mid-teens, I was interested in Greek and Roman mythology, Celtic folklore, ghost stories, of course. There were some occult and metaphysical studies through my mother's books, but it was in my later teens that I began exploring witchcraft, and then I became a practicing solitary witch. It wasn't fulfilling enough for me, though. I was looking for something that brought me what I had encountered on my own, and that was only really touched on. I wanted more substance, something that connected me in a way that my guides and I had connected on. The intimate level, the friendship level, the family feeling. And so it fell short for me. My family was part Scotch-Irish, so I explored Celtic witchcraft and spirituality and some of the gypsy traditions by that time. And by the time I got to that, I was probably in high school. After I graduated, I got involved with the Spiritualist Church and their teachings for a couple of years. I was exploring everything I could. And I caught the minister faking trumpet seances and apport sessions. For the listeners that don't know what those are, they're gifts from the spirit world that fall through the air for those that are present. And I saw through his staging, and I felt so misled. I just walked away. I was really disappointed with that. In my early 20s, I explored more metaphysics and the occult, some of the Rosicrucian teachings, but those were too restrictive for me, and so I kept walking. I was channeling by then, and curiosity led to some amateur paranormal investigating. And on one occasion, I went into a deep trance, and those who were present and witnessed it, I had no recall, said that my face changed, and I took on the countenance of someone else, the spirit that had taken me over. And I didn't like not having control of myself, so I stopped doing that firsthand. I retained my interest, but it was from a distance. And it's something that I seem to have passed on to River, because she likes someone present with her, too, when she's going into deeper studies. And I think that's wise if it's possible. You know, we don't always have that. We don't always have that capability, but it I don't know. It was too raw at that time for me. I just backed away from it.
You know, it's really interesting, Cinnamon, that you and I had such similar early years in terms of our discoveries and our pursuits, because I followed much the same path as you described.
Well, you must have been born in the late 40s then, huh?
Or actually early 50s.
Oh, okay.
Early 50s, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the times were, you know, we went through those times, and society just wasn't there for us. Yeah. It is today. It is for the young people coming up today, but it wasn't there for us when we were growing up. If you didn't get family traditions, or you weren't from a tribe of gypsies, or you weren't Native American, and having the elders there it was all oral tradition or what you read in a book. That's all you could get.
Well, fortunately, my grandfather was my elder, and that was a blessing in my early life. Without him, I don't know where I would have gone or what I would have done.
Well, that's who my guardian spirit turned out to be, was my maternal grandfather. That's a story in itself, but I got mad at God when he died, because God, you know, when you pray for something, you're supposed to, and it comes from your heart, it's supposed to be granted. At least that's what I thought. So I prayed my grandpa would come back to me. And I was blessed. He came from the other side, but it took me a long time to put two and two together.
Mm-hmm.
I just looked at him as, because he came in disguises. And I'd ask him, who are you? Who are you? And he would say, you already know. And that drove me nuts.
Yeah.
You already know who I am. Well, if I know who you are, why won't you tell me who you are?
You know, you said that how you know, Cinnamon, you were talking about how you know, now we have more support and it's more open and accepted. I have to say, I agree with that completely, because being a psychic development teacher, and I work with children, I have worked with them for quite some time, you know, whatever you want to call them, indigo kids, crystal kids, the parents are the ones that I think ought to be commended, because back in the day, the parents didn't want to deal with this kind of stuff. Now, you know, I do a class for indigo kids in the city, and I get, you know, 30, 40 kids. And that is tremendous. And what I love about that is that the parents truly support them. They're not holding them back. They're not telling them that they're free to they talk to spirit. They're saying, you know what? Maybe there's something there. Let me bring you to somebody who can actually bring out that gift in you. And they do that. And I think that a lot of the parents today need to be commended for that. Because back in the day, they didn't do it. Now, you said, I don't know how old you said you were. I'm going to be 46 in December. When I was a kid, parents didn't do that. You know, they didn't take you to psychic teachers or spiritual teachers. They just didn't do it. We had nobody to go to. We had to learn on our own pretty much until we got older and could find somebody to work with us. Nowadays, it's so different, because there are people like me and you and Victor and River who can go out there and teach people, and we talk about it, and parents feel comfortable bringing them to people like us because we're reputable. And I think it says a lot for society on how things have changed in the psychic community, especially when it comes to the kids.
I would agree with you. The parents back then used to tell the kids, that's your imaginary friend.
Right.
And shut their minds down. Make them close up. Quit playing pretend. Get back to reality. Come in the house and do your homework or whatever. You know, it wasn't supported in most households. There were a few like ours, I'm sure. You know, but it back then you didn't bring it out. And today, I think it's wonderful that parents are doing this because those kids need the help. They need somebody that will guide them on the right path so that they can develop.
It's very important.
Shut down a child as an adult and they come back to it as an adult, it's harder to make those connections. As a child, they're already open.
Absolutely.
You know, I agree with you, Mom. And I'm really glad that you did raise us the way you did. And I hear it from so many parents today. I hear how they're afraid to send their kids to college. They're afraid to step them out the door with instantaneous death. So we're worried about things of this nature. And I always tell people the greatest gift you can give your children is your time and what knowledge comes from your soul. Pass it on. Give them your knowledge, and don't be afraid to leave their minds open. Different day and age, you know, and it only takes one generation, just one, to affect change.
Riva, I have to say one thing, though. A lot of parents today are morons, and they're passing on crappy advice. So you have to take that into consideration, too, unfortunately.
It's true. There's some of that out there, too. But if you've got the spiritual knowledge to give, don't hold back. Give it away.
That's
give
right.
it to your kids. Give it to them. They're going to need it.
Well said.
Absolutely.
Well said. All right, Riva, you want to take the next question?
Let me take a look here. Absolutely. I'd love to interview my mother. This is fabulous. I think did we cover where did you find support for your interest, Mom? Or did you want to speak a little more of that or go into formal training?
It was mainly from my native guide, my grandfather, Wolf, and the elemental forces. They encouraged me to learn to work with my abilities. I worked solely with them until I was 11, 12 years old. The lessons were our secrets and came in a hands-on manner, so I found my own way of doing things, and that developed. They taught me it was okay to jiggle it a little bit to get it to work. Over the years, those early abilities evolved and just grew in the directions that they needed to go. But because I grew up in the extended family, in our house, we had resident spirits that showed themselves to every one of us, and they were there quite frequently. It was there that I was first introduced to ghosts. That's what my mother always called them. The ghosts are back. All this was common in our home, but it wasn't talked about outside of it. And I learned early on our secret kind of thing, though it was accepted as being normal, and spirit activity has been around me all my life in one form or another, so it just wasn't the sort of thing you talked about openly back in the 50s. The laws and public opinion didn't permit it. But no one in my family was oriented as practitioners. They just took a strong enough interest in things along the occult and metaphysical lines to be permissive and accepting of anything that I wanted to explore. So I did have the family support in that capacity. But I was self-taught for a long time.
All right. Well, what about formal training?
That came in my 20s. I reconnected with a friend from school who was Lakota Sioux. And for 6 years, she taught me the spiritual ways of her people through the oral tradition. Along with that, I was studying shamanism at the same time. And between the two, I had finally come home. She left the world way too young. Her heart gave out when she was 34. But before she died, she asked me to promise her that I'd keep learning the indigenous ways, and I made the promise, and I kept it. In my 30s, I went back to college for a second round just to please myself, and I studied world religion and mythology and folklore. And along with that, I had 2 years of Eastern philosophy with an ex-Catholic priest. And he and I would have long, wonderful talks outside of class, conversations that we could take deep, and we could be wide open with them, and it was great. I was curious about a lot of things, but I kept coming back to nature-based teachings, always back to where I started and what resonated with that understanding. Over the years, I met other indigenous teachers from various tribal affiliations. They shared their ways through the oral tradition, and I became an adopted blood sister to the Mohawk, the Cherokee, and the Delaware. And that's kind of been my path since then.
Interesting. Yeah, Vic, why don't you take the next one, buddy?
Let's see. Is it 11 or 12? 12, okay. Did this impact how you raised your own children? Did all of your upbringing and all of your experience impact the way you raised your own children? Obviously
Absolutely.
It did.
Yeah. I was very open with them always. As soon as they were old enough, I began unstructured teaching. I never sat them down to school them. We simply discussed things as they came up. We talked about events as they had their experiences, and pardon me. I encouraged them to embrace their own abilities that were emerging. The more structured teaching came when they were in their early teens. They took a deeper interest in the things I was doing, and they wanted to be involved, and so I'd answer the questions they had and bring them into their own spiritual awareness as gently as I could. River was glued to my hip. I mean, she was just a little bright shadow. When it came to spiritual activity, she had to know everything. And her spirit has always been hungry, and she's never liked not knowing. So she was right there when I was doing something. We lived in a rural community of 300 residents, and when they were growing up, these residents were closed-minded, at least for the most part. And so I had to teach them to keep things quiet, when they were in grade school. But it got out anyway. Like River was saying earlier, her sister would enjoy. She liked to watch people's reactions and the shock value of it. I did my best to instill in them heart and spirit, not ego, a sense of moral decency, and always the prevalence of sacredness with their gifts. I comforted fears if they had them, their apprehensions, and just reasoned things and gave them explanations so that understanding brought them the deeper insights they needed. And when they were older, by the time they got into their teens, that's when I started teaching ceremony and ritual practices and just shared my knowledge as we went along. I wanted them to have exposure to those early foundations, because I worked hard to find them myself, and I wanted to give them a shortcut. Here, don't go all over the place, look at this, and then go all over the place. So we interacted with spirits and the elemental forces from the time they were little. They were never made to feel guilty or ashamed of their gifts or their abilities, but they were taught to be respectful of them and to work with them so they'd grow stronger and they'd have a measure of control. I stressed acceptance for all cultures and races within humanity, for all forms of life, for nature, all the different beliefs that people have, and I let them make up their own spiritual and religious choices. I wanted them to think for themselves. And they both grew to be open-minded, discerning, beautiful women. I'm proud of both of them.
Absolutely.
You should be. I see them on Facebook. I speak to River all the time, being that we're doing the show together now. And they really are amazing women, and you should be commended for that. And I just want to say, with my kids, my son would see spirit when he was younger, but he doesn't anymore. My middle daughter is very good with reading the tarot cards, and she has a very psychic essence about her. My oldest daughter, who is Jessica, she's 18. One of my proudest moments, and Victor, I don't know if we were at the Kreischer Mansion when we did the investigation, when Jessica and I were channeling together, and we pitched.
No, I wasn't at that one. No.
Well, that was one of my most proud moments because I've been working with Jessica. At the time, she was 13 years old, and teaching psychic development. I teach people how to trance channel. It's not an easy thing to do, and most people can't do it. When I worked with Jessica, the first time, within 5 minutes, she was trance channeling. She blew me away. And I remember going to the Kreischer Mansion, which is a very haunted place here in New York. It's a place where there are over 21 bodies that have been chopped up, buried on the ground, cooked in the furnace. I mean, horrible things at this place. And my 13-year-old daughter at the time and me sat side by side, channeled two spirit at the same time, had a conversation with each other, and passed them to the light. And I got to say, she took everything that I taught her and put it into action that night, and she blew me away. Not only me, but the people that were there. I think Kathy's in the chat room. I'm pretty sure Kathy was there that night, and it was just a proud moment for me. And I knew that I taught her the right way because she did everything perfect. And it just gave me a sense of pride to know that a 13-year-old kid could actually get it. It kind of blew me away.
But that's when, they say from the age of 11 to 13 is when you start getting the formal teaching anyway. So you did
right.
You did it just right, Chris.
Well, thank you. And coming from you, that's a huge compliment.
I had a similar experience with my daughter. My daughter's now going to be 37 in December. And she was open from the time she was very, very young and constantly speaking to spirit. And when she was younger, it was actually difficult for her. And having had the background that I had, I was able to bring her encouragement, teach her about the energy, and teach her about being able to turn it on and turn it off with her intention. And it was a valuable lesson for her.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, we have a lot of similar stories, and I love sharing the stories on the air, and it gives people a sense of who we are, and it helps them to connect with us as not just radio or internet television personalities, but as people, and it's pretty cool, And I want to say, going forward on this show, I want to take calls. I want to hear your stories. We want to hear your stories. We want to interact with you, and a lot of times people say, you don't want to take live calls. You never know what you're going to get. Listen, we've taken live callers, and I've had people say some really bad things to me, and that's cool. It's all part of live radio. It's fun, and I enjoy it. So if anybody wants to call in and ask myself, River, Victor, or our wonderful guest Cinnamon a question, please call in. River, do you have the call-in number?
I had it a few moments ago. My apologies. Here we go. It's 818-431-8214. I'm going to repeat that. We've got 818-431-8214, DTM Wicked call-in number.
That's it. So if you want to call in, because we'd love to hear from you. That being said, let me take the next question, Cinnamon. I want to know, was your book your first step in a public view?
It was. And it was really intimidating. I'd been teaching and doing readings for people privately for years. But by the time my book came out, like I said earlier, women were just starting to step forward with these things. And those who were published, their books were big hits in the industry. And I questioned who I thought I was to compete with their expertise. And so when I put it in the mail to my publisher, my hands were shaking. But it's in its third printing now, and on Nook and Kindle, so it's serving the purpose for which it was intended. And I love how it's touching lives that I'd never be able to reach otherwise. It's just out there. My publisher, though, I do want to say that my publisher put a subtitle to it, calling it An Exploration of Native American Spirituality. But it's not. My intent was to do an overview of various traditions and the universal threads that run through all of them. And then with that, I included an overview of what nature-based spirituality is about, with a little insight into how the reader can begin making those connections for themselves. You know, basic tenets and of course, precautions. But, that was my first big step out.
It was a big step. And you know what, Mom? I can remember being a little girl and heading into your office as often as I could. And, you know, back in those days, long before the book, as far back as I can remember, my mother used to type on that typewriter, you know, that old push stroke.
Yep.
And I would listen to her, and she had this fabulous wooden chair, and I sat in her office, and I would just sit there, and I was small enough that my feet didn't touch the ground because I can remember swinging my feet. I didn't want to interrupt her until she would turn around and look at me, and then I knew I had her attention, you know. And if she wasn't looking, maybe I'd get away with taking a book out of it if I was lucky. But if she was looking, I was in trouble. She had eyes in the back of her head, like she said earlier. But she wrote many things, a lot of good books, many books that she still has. And I hope one day she lets them go, you know. But I'm proud of her, Mom, that I can women speak. I did encourage her. She's right. I did want her to write about what she knew. She had a lot of knowledge, and she still does. And it's really great, Mom, to hear you share like this. I love you. I love you, Mom.
All right, that was nice. Victor, why don't you take the next question?
Cinnamon, what brought you farther into the public perspective?
I'd say that was Spirit Lodge. River and I are co-founders of an Internet study and resource center. We have resource libraries, independent study, as well as certified courses. Personal services are available to those who want them, and membership is free, so it's open to the public. But that was given birth just prior to my book coming out, almost simultaneously, and I was really nervous about doing that too. We got the first few pages up, but it's grown tremendously since then. I think we started with 4 or 5 pages, and now we've got 7 topical libraries and several discussion forums and a wonderful community of like-minded people. And about that same time, I went live doing readings over the phone. And I'd been doing them out of my home for about 35 years, so these feel like pretty enormous steps for me to be taking, you know, all at once. Here I'm doing the phone readings and the website, and I've got a book coming out, and I'm going, oh, my goodness. But I knew that if I was going to serve the path that I was walking, I needed to listen to guidance. And I had guidance along with River constantly nudging my back. So they're both capable of being very persistent at times, you know. And I can be stubborn. I can be pretty resistant myself when I don't want to do something. So it's a good thing they are.
All right.
Real quick, let me give out that address in case somebody missed it. I think Mom's underplaying a little bit of a Spirit Lodge there. She's put a lot of her life's work into this online resource center. It is a free community. There are 1,100 topical articles in this library. If you need information, go there. Go to spiritlodge.youku.com. Go to spiritlodge.info. And both sites will interact with each other. And just take a look around and read. Read.
You know, I'd also like to add, for those of you who are on Facebook, we would love for you to like our fan page, which is the Paranormal Lounge. We just put it up yesterday. We already have like 250 likes, which is pretty cool. And my fan page is Psychic Medium Chris Georeg. If you give that a like, you have a very good chance of getting a free reading. I give away about 8 every single month. I give away free readings, and trust me, they're good. I didn't win Psychic Medium of the Year because I suck. So give it a like, and you have a chance of getting a free reading. And what I do is I show my 9-year-old son, Jojo, all the people that joined for the month, and he picks out 5, 6, 7, or 8 people, and I contact them, and I give them a free reading. So just want to throw that out there as well. And Victor's fan page is Victor the Voice Fuhrman. Please give him a like as well. And River, I don't know if you want to throw yours out there as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all over Facebook. River, Wildfire Moon, there's only one. You'll find a couple of pages for me, and Spirit Lodge and Two Moons Talking. It's all there. Facebook is a wealth of our activities. And soon we'll be at Tesla and with Paranoid TV, and find us on DTM Wicked Radio. I mean, we're all over tonight. This is fabulous, you guys.
Hey, we're all over. Who do we think we are? You're taking over the internet, girl. You have no clue. My father always told me when I was a kid, he used to tell me that, he used to say, Chris, you are like controlled chaos. You're this crazy, wild guy, but when it comes down to it, you pull it all together. And he used to tell me, Chris, leave, follow, or get the hell out of the way. So I've always been that person to jump in there and do what I got to do and surround myself with really good people, which obviously I've done with Victor and River and Larry from Tesla and Denny and Tiffany from DTM. Surround yourself with good people. So that's what we've done, and man, I'm just excited. Control chaos, baby. Anyway, why don't you take the next question now, River?
Oh, okay. All right, I got it. Controlled chaos. Where did we go? Well, we mentioned Two Moons Talking. Mom, let's talk about how you started off in radio. That's a part of your life that, took effort. We worked with that.
A little. Do you think so?
Yeah, I do.
Guidance was telling me to do radio and TV, and I had absolutely no desire to do that. I've always been more at home in a classroom setting rather than public speaking, and some of my gifted friends began getting messages, and out of the blue they'd call me or they'd write and they'd say, I got a message, you're supposed to be on the radio, and I'm, oh geez, please. And so I was dragging my heels. Public speaking just was not a favorite pastime. It got really hard to ignore those messages because they were coming at me from all angles. So I gave River a call, and I started talking to her about it, and she started getting the same intense sense. So she was pushing me hard, and I finally said, well, I'll do it if you'll do it with me. And she agreed. So even then, it was 6 months before we finally went on the air, and I was nervous as all get out. My voice shook and it cracked for the first 3 months. But now, well, I love it. I love talking and interacting with our listeners and sharing, and of course our group on Facebook, Two Moons Talking over there. It's great, but it was tough getting me out there.
Yeah, and you know what, Mom? We love you, though. And Two Moons Talking, the group loves you. Everybody loves you. You're okay. You help people, and that's the difference. You did it for the right reason.
Yeah.
People don't find that kind of love and support everywhere, and if they do, it's the dime a dozen kind, and it's the kind that doesn't help anybody, and you've touched some lives, and you've done a lot, and you did great. You did great with it. Let's go into your point of view. Let's talk a little bit about your point of view in regards to multicultural. Okay, because we touch a lot of different individuals with that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I've walked so many different paths over the years, and I'm a big proponent for eclectic study and sharing knowledge regardless of the tradition or the culture. I think they're all valid. Whatever path calls to someone is the one that they should be taking. Mixing cultures, to me, brings about a hybrid knowledge. I don't believe in restricting any path to a select few, and I think we should heed our resonances and respect those of others. But, Creator loves variety. Just look at the life forms on this planet, let alone what's out in space, and you can't help but see it. We've been given an array of potential journeys to choose from. And I think we need to follow what resonates with us, especially if we're going to make the connections that our spirits within these human bodies long for. I don't believe the knowledge should be kept hidden. It's too valuable. And I believe it's important to share openly if we want to make this a better world. The time has come to respectfully bring it out of the shadows, and if the path someone's walking takes them closer to guidance and closer to Creator, if it connects them to their own spirit, then it's a good road to be on. And if it, if it crosses multicultural paths, then it's only going to become richer.
Absolutely. It's an interesting thing, Cinnamon. I had the blessing of finding and attending one of the first interfaith seminaries in the United States, in fact, in the world, here in New York. It was formed in 1982. And the teachers there really said that we had to go beyond tolerance and go to respect and understanding and embracing the fact that each path leads ultimately to the same source. And I shared on another show the other night that I had the blessing of a wonderful teacher, a wise woman, someone like you, many years ago, who, when I was looking at crossing the paths that I had been on and was concerned about it from a standpoint of family tradition and religion, and she said something that changed my life forever. This was 30 years ago. She said, God does not require us to be holy, but God would love for us to be whole. And she meant that we should embrace everything and be fulfilled in every possible way to understand the true nature of creation. And I've lived by that since that time.
Yeah, I am not a religious person. I am a spiritual person.
Absolutely.
And I believe that religion has come from man. Spirituality, that comes from us. It comes from our soul. It comes from creation. It's what connects us to that whole. So yeah, I can relate.
So religion is a spiritual soul. Religion is all about, in my opinion, all about money, and it's the biggest business in the world. The only thing close to religion is prostitution. So you can take that any way you want. It's true, Victor. Listen, what are the two biggest professions in the world? Religion and prostitution. They go hand in hand. I don't know where you want to go with that, but that's just what I think. And I digress. I'm sorry.
You do get real, Chris.
We're not some of the oldest, too.
Yes. Well, Cinnamon, what you'll learn with me is I really don't have a filter. I'm really good at what I do, but I'm real at the same time. I don't go under the pretense of being this love and light guy and all that. Although when I have to be very spiritual. When I have to be, I'm very compassionate. But me in everyday life, I don't live my life psychically. I don't live my life. I live my life as Chris George. But when I have to be psychic meeting Chris George, I turn it up a notch, and that's just how I am. So you got to take me as I am, or not at all. You know what I mean?
That's great. You're not a fluff bunny.
He's definitely not a fluff bunny. No question about that. But you know what? He may not be. He may not. Wait, I got to comment on this. He may not be a fluff bunny, but Cinnamon and River, I know him personally, and this man has a true heart of gold.
Well, he's probably a teddy bear then.
I am a big teddy bear, absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that. Bears are good.
You know, before I asked River to be my co-host, I warned her about me. I told her, you have to expect me to say things that you're not going to expect. You're going to have to expect me to say things that are off the wall, because sometimes I am off the wall. And, you know, you have to be able to handle that. You have to be able to, you know, go with my flow, because sometimes my flow is all over the friggin' place. And, you know, especially after he's had a few shots, his flow is all over the place. But that's another story. That's right.
Okay. We can handle the heat.
That's it. Absolutely.
Victor, why don't you take the next question, my friend?
Cinnamon, what do you feel that the various backgrounds of your teachers offered you?
Oh, goodness. A wide range of perspectives wrapped around invaluable knowledge and insights. You know, sharing their knowledge expanded my understandings, and it brought me to experiences over the years that I wouldn't have had otherwise. They all helped me hone my skills in different ways, and that gave me a wider range of modalities, none of which would have been there for me. You know, I'm eclectic, and so I loved the variety anyway. But, excuse me, if I find a bit of knowledge, insight, or enlightenment that's going to serve me, I'm going to embrace it. And everyone has their own style of utilizing their knowledge and abilities. And so our path has to be right for us. If I'd stayed with just one teacher, I'd be sitting here with tunnel vision. I think that's what you get when you only have one teacher. You only know one way. So had I listened to those that wanted to tell me what path I should have walked, I wouldn't have been true to my spirit or myself. And so we have to follow our hearts, and we have to remember that no one's all-knowing. The more teachers, the better. We're curious creatures in the first place. I don't think we're meant to stop learning or evolving. And so, I mean, I'm still learning. Don't stop me. I want to keep going, and I think it was invaluable to have so many.
Absolutely. I always say that learning never stops. Those of us who are on the path find new and exciting discoveries every day. And anyone who says that they know it all knows nothing.
And they don't know jack.
That's an ego. That's an ego talking. You know, they gifted me with a broad view of the sacred mysteries, a broader view than I would have had. I learned the history of various means of preservation during the shadow times. They told of the sacrifices made by those who kept them hidden so they could ensure that the sacred was kept safe. I know the fear that drove those teachings into shadow and underground was very real. I didn't live through the persecution and inquisitions, but I learned about them, and that cost people their lives. And torture, oh my goodness, the torture they went through. So there was good cause to pull back into the shadows during those times. And they spoke of the time that the indigenous teachers spoke of the time from prophecy where the teachings would come out of the shadows and reveal their secrets in a time of need. And the four races of men would come together with their knowledge and combine it. And I think that's happening today. It prepared me to be the woman I am and to do the work that I do. So I think they gifted me with a literal arsenal of knowledge to share with those that seek and come my way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah, we have to, unfortunately, we only have about 9 minutes left in the show, and there's a couple other little segments we have to get to. So we're going to have to say goodbye to you, Cinnamon, and I really don't want to. I could talk to you for another 2-3 hours easily. There's so much to talk about. So I'm going to have to ask you to come back. You actually, I'm not even going to give you a choice. I'm telling you, Cinnamon Moon, you need to come back. So I'll leave you with that.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Cinnamon, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
River, I got to tell you, you must be real proud to have her as your mom. She's a really awesome woman. She was a phenomenal guest, and the knowledge she just put out there, second to none. And what's beautiful about this show and Victor, my show with Victor Second Sight is it's all about knowledge. It's so much information out there that people otherwise don't get to hear. They don't get to learn, and that's the beauty of doing this, is we get to teach people. And in the process, we get to learn stuff as well. Because like Victor said, anybody who says they know it all, they don't know jack shit. And that's a fact. So, River, why don't you give out the websites for DTM and Tesla so people know how to listen to us and whatnot?
No, you're going to hit me with our brand new websites already. DTMWickedRadio.com, TeslaWolfMedia.com. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right.
Going to be the new sites. Just find us on Facebook. It's a brand new show. We'll have specific URLs. We're gonna keep everybody in the loop. And Chris, I just have to say real quick. You know what? I am lucky to have my mom, and I knew what was there all along. And she talks about me pushing her. It was only in a loving way. It was only in a loving way because I knew a long time ago. So yeah, thanks for bringing her on, you guys. I'm glad you chose her. I'm honored too. I mean, I love her to death. So I love it. And after.
And go out and get her book. The book is called A Medicine Woman Speaks, an exploration of Native American spirituality, and so much more. Cinnamon Moon, you can get that on Amazon.com, and you can get it on BarnesandNoble.com, and you can get it anywhere great and wise books are for sale.
Well, Victor, I want to ask you a question before we get to the last shot. You've worked with me now for 2 years. You know me for 3 years. We're as close can be. You know all the ins and outs about me. You know how to deal with me on the radio and how to guide me when I'm going a little off key and whatnot. Do you have anything that you could share with River on what she can do to kind of work properly with me?
River, the only thing you need to do is sometimes Chris will go off on a wild tangent. And when Chris goes off on a wild tangent, you just got to send out a little grounding energy to bring him back down to earth. And it's very easy to do. You sort of rub his belly in a clockwise motion, and that solves everything.
Oh my God! You know what? That's funny you should say that, because when Christy's here, Christy's my girlfriend. She rubs my belly in the clockwise fashion and it calms me right down. Although it gets me kind of wound up too, but that's a whole other story.
And when Chris and I actually go out and do work, including the exorcisms, I'm the guardian of his heart energetically while he's doing the exorcism, and that's what I do. I sandwich his heart with my hands, and I put protective energy around it, and that's my role in the exorcisms.
All right, well, listen, River, I got to tell you, I don't think you're going to have any problem. I thought we worked really well tonight together, and Victor will be around. You know, he has the guest co-host spot every single show if he wants it. He is my radio partner for years, and he's welcome on this show anytime. Victor,
that's easy for you to say, Chris. You were breaking up, Chris. Chris, can you hear me? You're back now. You're breaking up. Your signal broke up.
I have the last shot. I hear you. All right, well, I have the last shot. And the last shot is kind of like a thought for the week. And this is what I wrote up here. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're going to be somewhere, be there. If you say you feel something, mean it. If you can't, will and don't, then don't lie. It's always better to tell people the truth up front. Don't play games with people's heads and hearts. Don't tell half-truth and expect people to trust you when the full truth comes out. Half-truths are no better than lies. Remember, love and friendship don't hurt. Lying, cheating, messing with people's feelings and emotions, that's what hurts. Never mess with somebody's feelings just because you're unsure of yours. Always be open and honest. Keep your promises and tell the friggin' truth, people. Amen. What do you guys think about that?
Amen.
All right.
Aho.
River, I want to know, who's our guest next week?
Our guest next week is the lovely Joyce Tucker, friend of Chris's. She's a world-renowned psychic, from what I understand. And she's going to enlighten us next week. So it's going to be a fabulous show. Tell us anything else you want to, Chris, about that.
Oh, I would love to. Joyce Keller is in the book Top 100 Psychics in America. Not only is she an amazing psychic, she's an amazing person. I met her years ago when somebody heard me on a radio show. They gave her a call and said, you got to get this guy on your show. I've now been on her show probably 12 times. She has the longest-running psychic show in America. I think it's 27 years now. Any psychic worth their weight that's on television got their start on her show. My cousin, John Edwards. What's the name? The one who just died, Sylvia Brown, who I don't think much of as psychic, but she got her start there too. James Van Prague. What's his name? The guy that I don't get along with. Name again. Jeffrey Wan. They all got their start on her show. So this woman, she it's like the who's who in the psychic world. She knows them. She's a psychic to the stars. She's been on Regis, I think, over 40 times. She's read all the big names, Carol Burnett, and she'll talk about all of them. She's an amazing woman. She's full of spit and fire, and you guys are going to love it. She's got some great stories.
I'm going to love that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I love it. It'll be fun. Great time.
Is there anything you want to say? We have 60 seconds.
Just want to say what a privilege it's been to be with all of you tonight. River, I love your mom. And I think she and I are soul family. We're soul brother and sister from another generation and another time. But the information she shared is so special. And the daughters that she produced are so special and so beautiful. And I've been friends with, I actually was friends with your sister Gypsy on Facebook way before I knew you or knew your mom. And I knew that energy was special way back then. So it was a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to be with you guys tonight. Thank you.
All right. And River, you want to take us out?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for our lounge party, our launch. Here we go, right? We're going to do it again and again and again and again. So come back next time. We'll make sure you know exactly where to go. Tesla Wolf Media, Larry, thank you. Paranoid TV, DTM Wicked Radio.
Cheers, everybody.
Victor, George, Mom.
And Chris is picking up the tab.
Yeah,
next
I'm picking
round.
up the tip. Anyway, hey, we're off the air now. That was a great first show, guys.
Wonderful.
I don't know that we're off the air.
Yeah, we're
what do you think, Larry? Larry, you're muted.
You need to get